My name's Alan Chapman. Hello, thank you for being here in August. Always weird being at a networking event in August time. I don't usually go to these because everyone's on holiday or watching Love Island or something. So well done for being here. Promise to make it worth your while. I'm Managing Director of Host Digital and e-commerce consultancy. So that's what I do. My bread and butter is this, or to use the technical jargon, conversion rate optimization. So this is a platform agnostic talk. This isn't really about Magento. This isn't really a technical talk. This is about the tools and processes and methodologies and systems that you go through, or I recommend you go through, in order to increase your conversion rates and sell more stuff on your websites, okay? So this is about force multiplying your traffic and getting more people to buy. I did want to start by saying 3 really quick things which I had to jot down on my phone to remind myself of. One is, I often do this talk in about 45 minutes or an hour. Sometimes I've done half a day's training sessions. My brief today from Lee, I think, is 15 minutes. So I'm going to talk quite quickly, and I apologize in advance for that. I also apologize if you can't see me behind the column. But hello, I'll move back and forth. So apologies if I talk quickly. I just want to get you guys to get as much out of this session as possible. A lot of actionable insight. That was the first thing. The second thing is, if you have any questions, please hold them till the end. There will be a 5-minute Q&A at the end, so just write the questions down, ask me at the end of the talk. Don't interrupt my flow, I hate that. And the last thing to say on a personal note is I'm a Southwest Londoner. Does anyone know why it sucks to be a Southwest Londoner this month in August? Waterloo Station. Are you a Southwest Londoner?
I travel.
Sucks. So South.
That's why I need to go holiday.
Let's say again.
That's why I need to go away.
Right, but you're here, so don't go away. So Southwest London is basically closing down. Waterloo's like half closing down for the whole month of August. So if this talk had been about 3 days' time, I probably wouldn't be here because it'd be too hard to get to. So I'm a South Londoner. I just put my hands up. I'm sure most people here are from North London. One more time, Lee. Thank you. So why should you listen to anything I say? I'm well aware this is that point. I love presenting, by the way, but this is that point in the presentation where everyone's looking at you, wondering if you're credible, authoritative, if you've done it before, if you really know what you're talking about and all of that stuff. So a little bit of creds. This is what I do. There are some blue chip companies that I've worked for in the past. My background is consultancies and agencies, and now I run a consultancy doing the kind of stuff that we're about to talk about. Very quick context at the top of this talk, and then we're just going to dive straight into the methodology, and I'm going to go very, very quickly through a prosaic methodology to help you go through a system that you can use to increase conversion rates on your website. Some of that system is summarized there, and then we'll do some closing thoughts at the end and then Q&A. Context, yeah. So conversion rate optimization, or selling on websites, or CRO, you might hear me use that term as well, conversion rate optimization. It is a prosaic system. There are lots and lots of different tactics that go into that, all of which, many of which are summarized in these circles. So this was a survey that came out a while ago from eConsultancy. The y-axis, I don't know if you can read it, but that represents perceived difficulty, and the x-axis is value. And so you see way over on the side there, A/B testing considered as one of the most valuable forms of CRO, of conversion rate optimization. That is not to say that A/B testing is the be-all and end-all. It is just one output from CRO. So please bear that in mind. I have worked with clients in the past who thought that A/B testing equals conversion rate optimization. That is absolutely not the case. A/B testing is often something that you do at the end of a well thought through conversion rate optimization process. It is just a single output. Other things that go into conversion rate optimization: competitor benchmarking, not sexy but important. Expert usability review, that means someone like me eyeballing the website. What else have we got here? Copy optimization, usability testing, website personalization. So you see it really does involve a lot of right-hand brain, left-hand brain thinking. There's a lot of moving parts that go into that. So there is no silver bullet, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot that goes into it. And thank God, right? Because otherwise every website in the world would look exactly the same. So summing up all the parts that go into CRO, I'd definitely recommend some kind of virtuous circle that moves in this kind of direction, where you start with research and insights, and counterintuitively research and insights and analysis tend to be about 80% of everything that you do when you're trying to increase conversion rates. It's all about trying to find the voice of customer data, the data from your Google Analytics, etc., to inform your thinking. Set your KPIs, hypothesis plan. That could be anything from, if we changed our homepage picture from a picture of a dog to a picture of a cat, people would think we're a warm, friendly brand and they'll buy more. That would be a pretty rubbish hypothesis, but it is a hypothesis, and that's the kind of thing that would be an output of your research and insight planning. So your hypothesis comes straight out of your research and insights. Then you produce your design solutions, only then. And then you move into actually implementing those design solutions in a live environment. And live environment implementation could be A/B testing, where we're spending 50% of the traffic to the old version and 50% to your new designed version in order to quantify the uplift and understand if you've moved the needle in the right direction. But it doesn't have to be A/B testing. Sometimes it could just be 100% server-side implementation on Magento, and you simply look at the results in Google Analytics and you pray to God that your conversion rate has gone up. The point being, whatever output you use from a CRO perspective, you're always informing it with hypothesis planning and research. Thank you. So diving into the methodology and starting with research and insights. I'm going to separate this into qual and quant, into qualitative research and quantitative research. From a qual perspective, what is that? So it's the intangibles, things like user testing and things like survey research and things like watching videos of users using your website and product. Things like that inform your design solutions, the intangibles. The quantitative stuff, the quant research is much more tangible, it's numbers. This is when you're looking at things like GA, Google Analytics, or Adobe Analytics, or whatever your web analytics platform is, and you're understanding drop-offs and abandonment rates and conversion rates on mobile versus desktop and Facebook versus Google and all the rest of it. So research and analysis, just bear in mind, it involves triangulating all these different data points, which could be qual or quant, in order to inform your hypotheses and your designs. On the quant side, it's basically going to be your web analytics platform when we're talking about websites. I do half-day sort of training sessions on GA, so it's impossible for me to kind of sum up in a single slide what that involves. But the single takeaway I can give you from a Google Analytics or web analytics perspective is this: segment your data research. Don't just look at the out-of-the-box figures that come out of Google Analytics, but do look at things like comparing devices, mobile versus desktop, or comparing traffic sources, Google versus Facebook, or comparing one landing page versus another. That's where you'll start to be able to get some really tangible analysis that you can use to inform your design solutions. Yeah, that's good, thanks. One other form of quantitative research, aside from web analytics, is things like mixed panel or heap. Has anyone used either of those platforms before? Maybe not, no. So traditional web analytics platforms like Google Analytics are page view based. They're limited in that respect because they'll show you things like how long people spent on a page, which pages people visited, drop-offs, that sort of thing. What they're more limited at doing is showing you events, clicks on a button, how many people executed that line of JavaScript that then revealed some new element on a page and then went on to click a button or play a video or whatever it was. So they're more event-based as opposed to page-based platforms. So can be really, really useful to add another layer to your quantitative analysis. Thank you. Qual research. So if we think of the quant research as footprints in the sand, it will give you a place to start. So instead of just looking at your website and going, we should optimize the shopping cart, or maybe it's the homepage, or maybe it's the product pages, or maybe it's the category pages, or I don't know. The quant research, the Google Analytics stuff, is where you start with. It's like following footprints in the sand. It will tell you where you should focus your CRO activities. But it's the qualitative research that will tell you what you should do on those pages. So the quant will tell you, fix that page, and the qual will tell you, this is how you fix it. Think about it in those kind of terms. So how do we do qual research? Surveys, a very, very obvious one. Pop-ups, or it could be overlays on the site, or it could be an email that you send to users, or it could be something that appears on the thank you page. There's lots of different ways of displaying that information. Thank you. Does anyone use, somebody must use Hotjar in the room. 1, 2, 3, at least 3. Is that it, really? So that Hotjar have really kind of raised market awareness in the field of heat maps and in the field of video playback technology. So when it comes to video playbacks, which is this slide here, I highly advocate, and it must sound really boring, but watching 30 videos of people on a mobile device try to use one of your product pages. And I guarantee you, you will learn something that you didn't think of before by simply looking at the page yourself. Because it makes you, it's like being a fly on the wall. It's like looking over the shoulder of a user and really understanding where their pain points are when they navigate your pages. Just this morning, I did just that for one of my clients, and I came up with a bunch more hypotheses that I wouldn't have found on my own sitting at the office. Okay. Another form of qualitative research, heat maps. To be honest, not as useful as video playbacks, but sometimes for some pages, it can be useful to understand where people are clicking, where people are scrolling, where people are hovering and mousing over, that sort of thing. Again, it's the same players that tend to do that. People like Hotjar, Decibel Insight. I could have put more logos here. I could have said ClickTel, I could have said Mouseflow, I could have said SessionCam. It's a very, very fragmented industry at the moment. There's a lot of players offering these kind of technologies. But the good thing is, it is not an expensive thing to do. There's no reason that anyone in this room shouldn't be using these kind of tech to inform their CRO activities. Anyone do user testing? Anyone do it systematically? So a few hands went up, and then they all went down. So with user testing, let's be really clear on this one. What I'm not saying is market research. So market research is where you conduct some surveys, or maybe you buy some third-party data, or you get some stuff from, I don't know, Hitwise or Comscore or something in order to understand something about your industry. What I'm talking about is setting scenarios and tasks for people who are representative of your target market and telling them, here are the tasks, here's my website. I'd like you to execute these tasks on my website and tell me how you do. So what you're in fact doing is getting people to use your site and speak aloud their thoughts if you're using the Think Aloud protocol, which I recommend because it's like a stream of consciousness. So they're trying to buy a pair of shoes on your site. They're probably in the comfort of their living room, and you're using technology to record what's going on their screen and record their spoken aloud thoughts as they're trying to do something on your site. So you get insights like, you know what, I'm trying to find a red pair of... You get insights like, oh, you know what, I'm trying to find a red pair of shoes in size 8, whatever, but I'm having difficulty doing this. That's the kind of thing that the user will say to you in a user test, and that's the kind of insight that you really want. So if I was going to rank these kind of analyses, I would say to you, user testing is right up there. That is the most valuable thing you can do to generate data and hypotheses to improve your site. I then say video playback, which is live traffic, whereas user testing is simulated stuff. But, and then I probably put heat maps below that. So that's how I'd kind of rank the qualitative data stuff. And those are some of the platforms that offer user testing. What users do, £50 a video, right? 5 videos, 250 quid, well worth your while. Yeah. Or you can do it guerrilla style. I'm actually doing this for one client right now. We're recruiting people, we emailed the customer base and we said, hey, you can have 15% off for 20 minutes of your time. If you could just reply to this email, then we will basically do a user test with you remotely. And I'm using GoToMeeting as a screen share in order to get that feedback from the user. So you can guerrilla style this stuff. You don't have to go through the big players like usertesting.com and what users do. There's different ways of doing this. Yeah. And then there's the smaller stuff when it comes to qual. First click testing. Where would you click if you were trying to accomplish X, Y, Z? And just ask 20 people that and see where they click. Card sorting. I'm sure a lot of people, because we're talking about Magento, we're talking about retail, a lot of people in this room probably have issues with information architecture, navigation. How do we structure the site nav? How do we structure our website? Ask the user. Just say to them, these are our products. How would you categorize them? There are click and drag interfaces like Chalkmark that do this for you really, really cheaply. So well worth, I think it's like $50 or something for a test on this. Well worth doing that if it's going to fix your information architecture problems and boost your conversion rate. What's stopping you from doing it? And then there's a bunch of other small things. I put Usability Hub because they offer a suite of very lightweight user testing. If you're just dipping your toe into this stuff, I might actually start with these guys because it's a pretty low barrier to entry. The 5-second test, I love this one. Basically show them the homepage for 5 seconds and then switch it off and go, what do you remember? Right? What elements of the value proposition stick out? Oh, the preference test. Which version of our logo do you prefer? You know, little things like that. You can get user feedback for absolutely everything. Don't hunker down in your boardroom and make these decisions amongst yourselves and fall into an opinion war, which is absolutely the worst place you can be. He said, she said, the hippo wins, right? The highest paid opinion makes that decision. Don't fall into that trap. Do a little bit of lightweight user testing. Get the voice of customer feedback. UX design, right, I'm moving really quickly through this. Yes, thanks Lee. So I'd love to get a bit of audience participation at this point. I'm guessing in the room we've got business owners, developers, designers, maybe some product, maybe some project managers. Who here's a bit of everything? Like design developer, business owner, you poor bastards, right? Unlucky. And you have time to be here, well done. Who here is just a developer, straight up developer? Just a developer, sorry, didn't mean to say that. Okay, there's much more of you. Designers? One designer, okay. Two, three, okay. All right, I wish it was just one because I'm about to absolutely kill your whole world and bastardize design. I'm basically going to say this. There are elements of UI, user interface, that you should just copy, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. Just go out there and grab that calendar, like calendar entry, right? You know when you click and then you've got a selected date, and you don't try and build that and design that yourself. That's already been done by someone before. Go and find the best UI that's out there for the widget that you're trying to build and copy it and grab it and put it on your site. There are places like UI patterns. I'm going to send this presentation around afterwards to anyone who wants it. My email address will be at the end, so just email me if you need it. This URL is a great place to start to get UI patterns, to get stuff where it's like a little widget that you can just basically steal and plagiarize, and it will speed up your UX stuff. Thank you very much. Don't reinvent the wheel, but also don't start with Photoshop or don't start with Sketch. Start with something that's going to be more content-driven. I always advocate wireframing and prototyping before you go into design. Okay, why do I say that? Why do I say use tools like these ones, these logos at the bottom, instead of Photoshop and Sketch? Because they're a bit more lightweight and they encourage you to think about content. They encourage you to think about the copy and the layout, right? The sort of IA, the information architecture of a given page, as opposed to worrying about color schemes and fonts and dotting the I's and crossing the T's and color gradients and image choice. Don't get bogged down in the window dressing yet. Think about the content architecture. Jump in with wireframes based on all the research that you've done first of all. It can be a low fidelity wireframe, black and white sketch. You can go to hi-fi if you want, high fidelity as well, which is much closer to the final graphic design product. But do not open Photoshop yet. Thank you. Yeah, I put these guys here because, of course, eventually you need the window dressing, right? You need the aesthetics. They matter, right? Credibility, professionalism, it does matter. But it doesn't matter as much as the content at all. So make sure that the Photoshop element is one of the final things that you do, right at the end of the process almost, not one of the first things you do, which is often the case. Thank you. Okay, UX design in 45 seconds. You ready for this? I have a qualification in UX, so I'm also kind of like, undermining myself by doing this. Let's go really, really quickly. Z pattern, scannability, put visual hierarchy in this kind of order sometimes so that when people have that first impression of your page, that is what they will see. Okay, next. Size, people are drawn to size. Put the big stuff, the important stuff in big writing and the not so important stuff in small writing. You get it. Okay, next. Direction and movement, wonky stuff, people draws their eye, right? Non-wonky stuff, less so. Okay, good, thank you. Space, if you want to visually draw attention to a specific element of a page, sometimes giving it lots of space and not cramming it with lots of other content can help too. Next. Texture, even though the word sports is bigger than the word badminton, your eye is still drawn to the word badminton because of texture. Texture matters. Color, contrast, and proximity. Okay, so things that are the same color tend to get cognitively grouped together by the user. Things that are different color, less so. Likewise, if you put things close together, the user tends to group and compartmentalize those things together as well. So think about color, contrast, and proximity when weighting your visual hierarchy. Thank you. And this is the last one. Hands up here if you've ever had a discussion in the boardroom or the meeting room about the color of the CTA button. Yeah, always a designer, of course. Yeah, there's a few of you. All right. I've also had this as well. I'm working on a design for a travel client right now, and the CTA button is red. And I've heard it, I've even read this on the internet. Don't put your CTA button in red because red is negative. So don't put it in red because it's a very negative color. The reason we made it red is because the entire rest of the site is basically a kind of dark blue color. And red and blue are roughly on opposite sides of the color wheel. So red stands out from blue. That basically kills that argument. You don't need to have this debate anymore about the color of a CTA button. If it's important, if it's the button you want people to click on, make it stand out with color, or size as well, but make it stand out with color, opposite sides of the color wheel. All right, that was UX design. But this is more important. This is more important, the value proposition. You already know what that is. You already know what your business stands for, right? You already know why your business is unique. So why am I going to harp on about value proposition? Because it's that important, and because I bet my bottom dollar, very few people in this room are expressing their value proposition strongly enough on their website. Let me explain what I mean. These are the 4 components of a value proposition. It's obvious, right? It's got to be appealing. It's got to be unique. It's got to be crystal clear, and it's got to be trustworthy. And think about your homepage and think about your product pages. On the homepage, it's probably more on a business level you're trying to communicate, and the product page, it's probably more on that product level, right? You're trying to sell that pair of shoes or whatever. You need to make sure all of these are checked off, but in detail, like really, really hammer them home. If any of those are missing, add them in. Think about the content. Think about the content architecture. Thank you. The best way of explaining this, I'm probably going to run out of time, so I'm going to be really, really quick. I'm so sorry, Lee, is with examples. So I'd take, I'm going to take you really, really quickly. If I said to you, I've just come back from holiday, I went to Timbuktu, and I picked up this beauty serum, I'm going to sell it to you for £5. It's going to make you sexier. Would you buy it from me? £5. No. £1. I'll give it to you for free. Cheapskate. Why is it not a very effective value proposition? Because you can't just have appeal on its own, right? It needs to have a little bit more weight to it. So if I said it's a beauty serum, but you know what also? It increases the collagen stimulation, increasing your skin's elasticity to prevent the effects of aging. That's a little bit more clear about how it works, right? But also, if I had a bit more exclusivity, this is the only beauty serum with topical form of vitamin C that can penetrate the skin. By the way, I made up all of this up. Then that value proposition again is starting to get a bit weightier, right? So let's move on to the 4th component of value proposition. The last one is credibility. It's tested by independent clinicians, blah, blah, blah. Product of the year, Global Skincare Association. The GSA. Doesn't exist, I just made that up. Right? But you see how those different step changes start to make this whole thing a bit more credible. Think about those elements when you're building your value proposition. Okay, last thing, last minute really of this talk, the measurement side. You've done all that analysis, you've done your qual and your quant, you've done your UX design, and you've thought about the value proposition, and now you've launched your product, and now you're ready to measure it. You can A/B test it. bunch of platforms that do that for you. 2 years ago, these are the only two I would have mentioned, Visual Web Optimizer and Optimizely at the end. The industry's way more fragmented now, which is a good thing for us users because it's actually a lot cheaper for you to A/B testing. Google Optimize, yay, I've launched it. We all know when Google launched these products, everyone starts using it really, really quickly, which is what happened with Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager and stuff. So there's really no reason why you can't use some products that are free, like Google Optimize, or Convert.com, or A/B Tasty. There's a lot of platforms out there. They're very easy to execute. Also think about using other things to measure improvements to your website. Things like time to complete task or satisfaction surveys. Those are ways to measure over a period of time whether users think that the website is better to use or easier to use or whatever it might be. And you can do that to that point, single these questions. Was it easy or hard to complete this task? Or you can ask them these 10 questions on a system usability score, standard survey, use the worldwide over in order to see how you're doing over time against these kind of criteria on your website. Thanks. Yeah. Closing thoughts. Told you I'd talk quickly. Next, sorry. It's an iterative process. This is not a kind of 2008 we designed it, and then 2013 we designed it, and then 2017 we designed it again. Because when you do that, you don't really know which elements moved the needle in the right direction and which elements didn't. So you're shooting in the dark. What is a better process, and this is the last slide, is something that's much more iterative. Evolutionary site redesign. This graph on your right, where we're making step changes on a week-to-week, on a month-to-month basis, based on data throughout the year. And you're always going through conversion rate optimization. It's a process of continuous optimization that never stops. So let's move away from these 5-year gaps, or 1-year gaps, or 6-month gaps. Let's go towards week-on-week optimization. Thank you very much.